Staging a music festival is an extremely risky thing. Everything works on a knife's edge. And while a promoter can make an insane amount of money from a festival, everything has to go just right. But if things start to go wrong at any point, the failures can cascade into disaster, financial and otherwise. The basic logistics are daunting. You have to bring in a bunch of artists from all over the world, take care of all their transportation, accommodation, catering, and technical needs. Tens of thousands of people need to buy tickets to stand out in a field for 1, 2, 3, or even 4 days, completely at the mercy of the weather. Think about it. You need staff, security, medical personnel, sanitary facilities, food suppliers, parking, public transportation, camping, power, permits, and a million other things all working together. And humans being humans, you just can't trust them. Once you get tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people into a confined open space for an extended period of time, and then add in drugs and alcohol, weird and bad things can happen. Some promoters do have it down to a science. Glastonbury, which began in 1970, sells out within minutes of tickets going on sale. It's celebrated as the most famous music festival in the world. The UK also has Reading and Leeds, which involves running 2 festivals in different cities on the same weekend. They've been doing this since 1999. The people behind Coachella and Lollapalooza have been consistently able to stage festivals for decades with only the occasional glitch. But then there are the disasters. Woodstock 1994 was an organizational nightmare complete with bad weather. And I know because I was there. It was eclipsed only by Woodstock 1999, which was so bad multiple documentaries were made about it. And let's not even get started on the disastrous Fire Festival, a giant ripoff and boondoggle that saw people sent to jail. I'm Alan Cross, and this is episode 64 of Uncharted Crime and Mayhem in the Music Industry. And these are the stories of 2 Canadian music festivals. They're both largely forgotten, and maybe probably for the best. This is the spectacular weirdness of the Strawberry Fields and EdenFest music festivals. The history of the modern music festival, the concept of a multi-day outdoor celebration of all things music, begins in 1967 with the Monterey Pop Festival, which ran from June 16th to 18th near San Francisco. Rock and roll itself was only about a dozen years old, so the idea of people gathering in a field to listen to music for a weekend was brand new. It was also very exciting, especially during the glorious Summer of Love, which attracted hippies from across North America. The lineup featured Jimi Hendrix, who set his guitar on fire. The Who. Keith Moon got a hernia heaving his drums into the audience. Janis Joplin. The festival put her on a path to becoming a legend. Otis Redding, who would soon die in a plane crash. Rising folk stars Simon and Garfunkel. Local heroes the Grateful Dead and the Jefferson Airplane. And the Mamas and Papas, one of the great Summer of Love bands. Although the organization was dodgy, the sound system awful, and the drugs bad, similar events started sprouting up everywhere. There was the original Woodstock in 1969, an organizational and weather disaster that nevertheless has gone down in history as a pivotal cultural event. The Rolling Stones tried to replicate the good vibes with their Altamont Festival that December, but it has gone down in history for all the wrong reasons. I already mentioned Glastonbury's founding in 1970, and Roskilde was established in Denmark in 1971. They both became annual events that continue to this day. There are, however, some festivals that are best forgotten. Canada's Strawberry Fields may be one of them. In fact, unless you're of a certain vintage, you've probably never even heard of the festival that was designed to be Canada's Woodstock and part of the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And it didn't quite turn out that way. The promoter was John Brower, the same guy who miraculously pulled off the Toronto Rock and Roll Revival Festival at Varsity Stadium in Toronto on September 13, 1969. Just as that whole thing was on the verge of collapse, John Lennon unexpectedly agreed to appear with a group billed as the Plastic Ono Band. This was Lennon's first performance outside the Beatles and a major reason behind the Beatles' breakup a few months later. Brower got very lucky. before Lennon signed up, literally 24 hours before the gates opened, he stood to lose everything because ticket sales were abysmal. Millions of dollars were at stake, and it didn't help that he'd enlisted the help of a local biker gang. But Brower pulled it off, and the Toronto rock and roll revival is now legendary. So he thought, why not try it again? He'd learned some hard lessons, so what could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot, as it turns out. If this was indeed going to be Canada's Woodstock, he would need a bigger venue. He secured Mossport Park, or at least he thought he did, an auto racing circuit covering 2 square kilometers east of Toronto near Bowmanville. It had been staging events since 1961. The dates picked were August 7th to 10th, 1970, just a few days shy of the 1-year anniversary of Woodstock. Since Brower now had a relationship with John and Yoko, his idea was to present the event as the Toronto Peace Festival, with a couple serving as hosts and MCs. Great. But Brower immediately ran into trouble. The permits he applied for were mysteriously and repeatedly denied by local authorities. It wasn't until 2007 that declassified documents showed that the RCMP was spying on John and Yoko over suspected drug use and radical political views, something that was also going on in the US. John, though, was unavailable anyway. In the summer of 1970, he was mired in the breakup of the Beatles and was trying to get his solo career started. So, no ex-Beatle. No matter how he tried, Brower could not secure Mossport, so the Toronto Peace Festival was moved to a 100-acre strawberry farm 1,500 kilometers away in Shediac, New Brunswick. And despite the lack of a Beatle, it was renamed the Strawberry Fields Festival. Once again, though, permits were hard to come by. Local officials were apoplectic over the possibility of thousands of anti-Vietnam dope-smoking hippies descending on a quiet town of about 3,000 people and fornicating on the front lawns of decent citizens. There was another attempt at a move. What about London, Ontario? Nope, so it was back to Mossport. This time, Brower's plan was to present this as a motorcycle race, with a little music on the side. Music festival? What music festival? We're at a racetrack. That, incredibly, worked. Local authorities were faked out for months, largely because Brower downplayed the status of the artists he planned to book. In Canada, anyway. Most of the advertising was done outside the country, with a focus on New York State, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and across the eastern seaboard of the US. While Americans were promised a weekend of love, sun, and sound, Canadians were sold something about a motorcycle race with a few musical performances. A motorcycle racing body was convinced to sign on, thinking that they were the star attraction for something Brower called the first annual Strawberry Cup Trophy Race, unwittingly providing some unofficial cover for what was really going on. Meanwhile, about 24 acts were signed, and tickets went on sale for the insane price of $15, equivalent to more than $120 today. Wait, for a motorcycle race? Well, yes, but also Alice Cooper, Jethro Tull, Procol Harum, and Grand Funk Railroad. Woodstock vets Mountain, Melanie, 10 Years After, and Sly and the Family Stone were invited too. Canadian content came from Lighthouse, Crowbar, and Syrinx, an experimental electronic band. Led Zeppelin was also advertised as coming, but they never showed. Same thing with Leonard Cohen. But just days before the gates were supposed to open, Ontario Premier John Robarts found out what was going on. Local RCMP came in to screen films of hippies, American ones mostly, dancing, going nude, and doing drugs. Robarts went to his Attorney General demanding that something be done on the grounds of health and safety. An injunction went before the court, and on August 6th, less than 24 hours before the gates were supposed to open and the music was supposed to start, the injunction was denied. The court ruled that there was no ground to prohibit the festival from going forward. All Brower really had to do was provide assurances that medical personnel and the Addiction Research Foundation would be available to handle any overdoses. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people were already heading to Mossport, most from the U.S. Northeast. Many hundreds were turned back at the border because they couldn't provide adequate ID. Others couldn't provide proof that they had the means to support themselves while in Canada. And all that required was the presentation of $40 in cash. In the lineup at the Thousand Islands Bridge, The same $40 was passed down the line just so people could get in. Some were so determined to be there that they jumped border fences. One guy drowned trying to swim across the St. Lawrence River near Prescott, Ontario. A few were arrested for trying to import drugs. Remarkably, though, once the music started, things went okay. Things were largely peaceful. Yes, there were some drug incidents, but nothing serious. And it's even possible that the event was profitable. Total attendance may have been upwards of 100,000 people. As for the motorcycle race, that official body pulled out when they realized that they were being duped. But Brower did have a couple of racers do one lap just to fulfill contractual obligations. The festival finally ended at around 5:30 in the morning on Monday, August 11th, with Sly and the Family Stone concluding things just as the sun came up. So, why does almost no one remember Canada's Woodstock, especially since there was all this controversy around it? Strange, isn't it? On site, Yorkville Sound took care of the PA with the world's first 24-channel mixer and recorded everything right off the stage. The festival was also professionally filmed. But neither any soundtrack nor film was ever released. The only evidence that the Strawberry Fields Festival happened are some silent home movies shot on 8mm film, some terrible bootleg recordings, and a little bit of TV news footage. Strawberry Fields, which should have been some kind of cultural milestone for Canada on the level of Woodstock, wasn't. And that's a shame, don't you think? About a quarter century later, another festival was held at Mossport, and it too had its share of weirdness. A lot of it. But things didn't turn out quite so well. On its face, Mossport Park is a great place for a rock festival. Access to Toronto and the American market is great. There's plenty of room for parking and camping, and there are large open areas for stages, sound equipment, concessions, and more. Yet it hasn't been used much. After the Strawberry Fields Festival in 1970, which I said was largely peaceful and successful, there have only been a few other similar events staged there. On August 26, 1978, it was the site of Canada Jam. This was promoted by the same people who did the two massive California Jam festivals. Acts included Triumph, Kansas, the Doobie Brothers, and for some reason, the Village People. 110,000 people showed up, paying $20 in advance or $30 at the gate. Canada Jam was the largest paying rock event in Canadian history, a record that would stand until SARS Fest in the summer of 2003. And again, things were mostly peaceful. About 350 people were treated in the medical tents, but mostly for heat exhaustion, the odd cut and bruise, and a few drugs and alcohol problems. And that was it. Several TV specials were culled from the performances, and the promoters grossed $2.5 million. Yet few people remember Canada Jam. The next festival event at Mossport was August 23, 1980. This was Heatwave, which was heavy on punk and new wave. The lineup included Teenage Head, Talking Heads, Pretenders, B-52s, and Elvis Costello. The Clash were booked but never showed up. This was another John Brower production. Around 100,000 people made it, spending $20 in advance and $25 at the gate. However, there were plenty of accusations of missing money. It said that Heatwave lost at least $1 million. And that was it for festivals at Mossport for 16 years. No promoter had any appetite for risk at the site. Then came EdenFest, which ran between July 12th and 14th, 1996. When it was announced that spring, there was tremendous excitement. Big festivals were enjoying a renaissance in the 90s. Lollapalooza really kicked it off in 1991, but there was also the long-running Edgefest in Canada. The Tragically Hip took their Another Roadside Attraction across Canada. Woodstock 94 wasn't all that great, like I said, trust me because I was there, but it got a lot of press. And the Warped Tour had hit the road for the first time in 1995. So, the time seemed perfect for a return to Mossport. The promoters were Eden Entertainment Group, a division of iConcerts, a company out of Buffalo run by Mark Drost. He and his brother David ran the Icon Music Club on Ellicott Street in Buffalo. Mark was the promoter and David was his production manager. And their goal was to make EdenFest an annual event with a minimum lifespan of 10 years. and creatively, this looked brilliant, at least on paper. But his company had little experience with something this big. The budget was around $6 million, and while they managed to get through all the permitting issues, a lot of bills that were supposed to have been paid before the festival apparently were not. Advance tickets sold reasonably well. By mid-June, 30,000 were sold at $134 each before rising to $150. Projections called for paid attendance of 90,000. This, however, would become a major problem. Gates opened at 8 a.m. on Thursday, July 11th, one day before the music started, so everyone could find their place among the 8 camping spots and get settled. People who had tents could camp for free, but if you had any kind of camper vehicle, the charge was $200. And, as was the custom in the days before smartphones, no video or audio recording devices were allowed. But Drost promised to lean into new technology. EdenFest would be one of the first major concert events to be streamed on the internet. All anyone had to do was log on to edenfest.mediacast.com, which, by the way, is still accessible, although it hasn't been updated since 1996. It was the era of real audio and real player, so we're talking really primitive technology. Those who did try out the stream had to be happy with stuttery video and audio through a postage stamp-sized video window. EdenFest also teamed up with the Electronic Frontier Foundation and other groups dedicated to protecting the freedom of speech online. Interesting, though, that while the beer tents were packed, the internet area, called the Internet Expo with all its computers, really wasn't that busy. Our press report said this: "It appeared that the link between Generation Xers and their cyber revolution isn't as strong as their ties to cold beer." Another popular attraction was Get Your Head Shaved for $10, all money to charity. The weather cooperated, and the lineup was fantastic. Day one included The Cure. Robert Smith wore a Maple Leafs jersey and was well received, except that The Cure went overtime and their power was cut before they could finish all their encores. Gavin Rossdale and Bush were there, still operating under the name Bush X in Canada for legal reasons. And Sloan, Spirit of the West, and half a dozen others appeared on the main stage. The second stage featured Stabbing Westward, Gravity Kills, Shed 7, and more. On Saturday, fans got the Tragically Hip on the main stage, which was perhaps the high point of the whole weekend. They were joined by Live, Love and Rockets, Everclear, Spacehog, and Tracy Bonham. A real surprise was Perry Farrell's Porno for Pyros. Somehow, Mark Drost convinced Perry to tear himself away from Lollapalooza, a festival he founded, to play this show. The second stage had punk legends the Buzzcocks, the Skydiggers, and a band called Muse, but not that one. Finally, Sunday looked like this: Catherine Wheel, Goo Goo Dolls, Howard Jones in a wild orange jumpsuit, the Muddy Muddy Bosstones, the Watchmen, and Ani DeFranco on the main stage. The second stage was an all-Canadian affair with Universal Honey, Head, the Gandharvas, Pluto, Holly McDarland, and more. There were even celebrity sightings. Jason Priestley, Rob Morrow, and comedian Mark McKinley were there. There was the Global Village, which was a pop-up shopping mall where you could buy everything from band merch to CDs, get a tattoo or some body painting, or perhaps just some funky jewelry. I was there, covering the event for my radio station. We had an RV in a private area where people came and went throughout the weekend, where we often crossed paths with the folks from Much Music who had gone all out with their coverage. Our RV was also the hub for all kinds of news and rumors. We'll get back to that. Earlier in the weekend, about 20,000 people broke through the fences after security suffered a catastrophic breakdown. Others hopped a large concrete wall near the main entrance. Others somehow managed to acquire counterfeit tickets and just strolled in. 70,000 people had legitimately bought tickets for $134 or $150, which sounds good, but remember, organizers needed around 90,000 to be safely in the black. And now the grounds had to absorb another 20,000 freeloaders. A hole in the perimeter fence was made, and people poured in. Mossport covers a huge area, 2 square kilometers, and some of the fence bordered on forest. It was a tough thing to police, even after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on another 9-foot fence topped with barbed wire and deploying patrols with guard dogs. Even those who had tickets made use of the hole, or holes as it turned out, because it meant that they could bring in all their booze, which would have been otherwise confiscated at the gate. This put a tremendous strain on everything from camping sites to food and beverage to security, to just finding a place to watch the show. Eventually, the whole became a two-way portal, people coming in and people going out for what seemed like an endless tailgate party in the parking lots. As for everything else, things went well. A Canadian press story ran in newspapers across Canada with the title, "Peace Reigns." I quote, "Eden Music Festival continues to run like a well-oiled machine on Saturday as 50,000 people, it was actually more like 100,000, soaked up the sun and music in an atmosphere benefiting its name. The 3-day event, which winds up Sunday, has been remarkably trouble-free. There were only a handful of arrests at the festival by mid-Saturday, including one related to trafficking of narcotics and an assault charge. Actually, there were 2 arrests, both involving guys from Philadelphia who showed up with a bunch of mushrooms, and the assault charge was laid on a drunk guy in the beer tent who shoved a cop. Back to the story. The 35 paramedics were busy treating mosh pit injuries, sore necks and scrapes, sunburns, and sore eyes from blowing dust, but nothing more serious. The same day, Saturday the 13th, the Toronto Sun ran a cover story with the headline, "East to Eden," which talked about how well things were going. The only complaint was that the lineup could have been a little more diverse. Even then, the article ended with the sentence, "Power to the people." Another Sun article read, "Eden Music Fest is proving that the concept of a big rock festival has been streamlined. There were no major incidents at Mossport as the show wound up for the Tragically Hip's headlining performance on Saturday night. Years ago," the article continues, quoting a cop working at the festival, "officers had to travel in groups of 4 for their own safety. I've had more trouble getting to church on Sunday morning." Oh, there was the usual grumbling. A cold shower at the unisex shower truck cost $2 and the wait was 40 minutes. Once you got inside, privacy wasn't anything that could be expected. Food and drink was expensive. A bottle of water was $5, and those who paid to get in were resentful of those who crashed the party, but again, nothing serious. By the time the music died away Saturday night and everyone went back to the campgrounds, everyone was looking forward to the finale on Sunday. But there had already been problems, stories of which filtered through our RV. For some reason, rumors began to spread about a big surprise guest. The RV was buzzing, and the first name that bounced around was Garbage. Then, explicably, Rita McNeil made it into the mix. Then, someone said they saw Green Day's name on one of the dressing room trailers backstage. No, you're wrong. I heard it was Soundgarden. No, you're both wrong. It's the Chili Peppers. They'll be here Sunday. Either them or Van Halen. Or Metallica. No, I heard that Pearl Jam is going to helicopter in on Sunday at the last second and close the festival. You're all wrong. It's the Smashing Pumpkins. I heard from one of the security guys backstage. None of that happened, of course, but these rumors spread like a virus in the crowd. Everyone expected something big, very big, was going to happen. And it did. But it was not what people wanted. The first major problem with EdenFest was, like I said, that security breach of the perimeter fence early in the weekend. But that turned out to be just the start of things. Behind the scenes, there were more issues. Promoter Mark Drost was coming to terms with the fact that EdenFest was going to be a financial disaster. Unbudgeted expenses for security was a factor. More rumors started filtering through our radio station RV. Drost had had a heart attack on Saturday afternoon and had to be airlifted out by ambulance. Another rumor said that he'd faked the heart attack because he just couldn't take it anymore. The truth seems to be that he was removed from the site on Sunday because of a severe panic attack that sure looked like his heart was exploding. Another rumor, 3 duffel bags full of cash were airlifted out, bound for, who knows. Again, totally unsubstantiated and unverified, but it gives you an idea of how fast and weird the rumors were spreading. I'd gone home Saturday night to sleep in my own bed. The radio station RV was pretty crowded and chaotic by this time, but I did plan to return for day 3 on Sunday. I was feeling pretty good about things. Everyone I encountered said that they were having a fantastic time, and I couldn't wait to get back there. When I got up, I called ahead to see if anyone needed anything. Don't bother coming, I was told. Something's off. The vibes have changed. And they had. Many of those still at Mossport woke up expecting something really cool for day 3. People were pretty partied out, especially those who arrived when the gates opened on Thursday, but most were still game. However, As the day wore on, it became apparent that none of the rumors were going to come true, and the natives were getting restless. Very restless. The on-site ATMs had run dry, so if you needed cash to buy food, you were out of luck. And if you did have cash, there were shortages of food. Many people, tired and dirty, decided it wasn't worth waiting around for something might or might not happen, so they bailed early. To stave off problems, alcohol sales were cut off. Shuttle buses to the remote parking lots started running early. The set times for the remaining acts were moved up an hour or two so things could wrap up early. Those who stayed got grumpier, especially when it became obvious that there would be no bombshell surprise guest. Then, at some point, the vandalism began. Fires were set, fed by everything from trash to camping equipment. Then someone grabbed some old tires from the racetrack crash barriers and lit those on fire. Black smoke billowed everywhere. Some golf carts used by the staff were seized and overturned. At least one was set on fire on the approach to the pit lane. There were fights with security. Where was Mark Drost? Where was his promotion team? Unclear. But wherever they were, there really wasn't much they could have done. When order was finally restored and the racetrack was mostly cleared late Sunday and early Monday, there was a lot of garbage and damage. The cleanup cost thousands. On the bright side, though, there were no serious injuries, and no one died. This would be the only EdenFest ever. Mark Drost and his company were bankrupt. The town of Clarington, where Mossport is located, was stiffed with a series of unpaid bills. Mossport apparently didn't get paid what they were owed either. Did all the bands get paid? Well, I'm not sure, but I do know that the Tragically Hip asked for their fee up front and got it. I can't speak for anyone else. And I do know that $3 million had originally been allotted for artist fees. So what was it about EdenFest that made it such a financial disaster? Well, only 70,000 tickets were sold when the magic number was 90,000. A number of sponsorships, like branding of the main stage, went unsold. There was no public funding, government grants and the like. All the money was private, all of it from Mark Drost's people and backers. Finding a ticket seller had been a problem. The EdenFest people decided to print up their own tickets, but then some other company obtained a few of these tickets and printed up to 20,000 exact replicas, counterfeits. And what of Mark Drost? There may have been issues with Drost selling counterfeit tickets. He was later investigated by the FBI for trying to extort $2 million from an American bank involving festival funds. There was an alleged scam involving a children's charity. There's even a story involving some kind of bomb threat. Again, unspecified, unverified, unsubstantiated. But that's the story of EdenFest, right? During this period, there was talk of Drost facing a 20-year jail sentence, and he was eventually convicted of fraud over counterfeit concert tickets. After all his legal issues were behind him, Mark never again promoted any music event. Instead, and this is true, he got deep into hot yoga and became a senior-level teacher. His plan was to develop a yoga studio for yoga professionals, and the name of this place was Evolution Yoga. That was 2003. But then in 2007, the hot yoga studio burned down, and Bikram Chaudhry, the yoga legend, sued Mark for using his name and techniques without permission, and that ended up in court for a while. And today, as far as I know, Mark and his wife are still in the yoga business, teaching some high-level stuff. Mark's brother David would end up in San Francisco, where he did catering for the opera and the symphony. Then he worked for a caterer for the Guggenheim Museum in New York. And as far as I know, he's still in that business. Meanwhile, EdenFest is forever dead, although its memory is kept alive through a surprising number of websites and Facebook pages, including one called I Survived EdenFest. Those who went still have extremely fond and positive memories of that weekend in July 1996. Despite all its failures, EdenFest became a cultural milestone for Gen X, a time before cell phones and other digital devices took over. The majority of the attendees had an awesome time. Posters, ticket stubs, and the official festival newspaper have all become collector's items. And people still check in at edenfest.mediacast.com, even though there's nothing to see. But yes, the site is still up. Maybe you'd like to take a swing at resurrecting EdenFest. If you do, the original domain for the Drost company, edenent.com, is available, and it's yours for under $2,000. Good luck with that. You can catch up on all episodes of Uncharted by downloading them from your favorite podcast platform. If you have any questions or comments about anything you hear in this podcast, shoot me an email, alan@alancross.ca. We can also meet up on all the social media sites, along with my website, ajournalofmusicalthings.com, which is updated with music news and recommendations every day. And there's the free daily newsletter that you should get. And please check out my other podcast, The Ongoing History of New Music, which deals with rock music at large. There are hundreds and hundreds of episodes that you can all enjoy for free. See you next time for more stories of crime and mayhem in the music industry. Episodes arrive every 2 weeks. Technical production is by fellow EdenFest survivor Rob Johnston. I'm Alan Cross.